Life gives us moments when we have the opportunity to make a choice. And what we choose has the potential to change our lives forever. Join us now for another inspired episode of The Breakthrough. And now, please welcome the creator and host of the show, Jessica Dugas.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Breakthrough Show. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I'm so excited and thankful to be back here for another episode with you today. Today's show is going to be amazing, as you'll be hearing from, finally, the other half of the dynamic duo from the Plant Trainers podcast, Adam Chaim. As you know, or may not, but some of you know that Shoshana Chaim has been a regular on The Breakthrough Show from the beginning, but today we get to hear from her spouse, Adam, as he tells us about the breakthrough moments that he experienced in his own life with his health struggles and going into the plant-based world. It definitely wasn't something he planned on, and so you're going to love hearing from him here shortly. But first, in our Hot Topics segment today, you're going to be hearing from just me. I'm going to share with you some of the big realizations that I've had in my own plant-based journey. So for anyone that is not familiar with me or the show or anything like that, we became plant-based as a family in 2017, and this was after having severe struggles with one of our children's health. I'm a mom of 6, and one of our younger daughters started having massive health issues with her digestive system. And I'm going to try to leave this as audio friendly as possible through this story, because it's not pleasant when you go through any kind of health struggles. And I also want to be very protective of her and her story at this point. So this was something that literally we did overnight as a family. To kind of backtrack a little bit, I had when I lost my brother in 2010, being plant-based was one of the things that came on my radar, as we had been, or I say we, as I had been exploring different methods of physical healing and personal transformation and all of that. And so the plant-based world, raw vegan world, all of that came onto my radar around that time. So that was 10 years ago now. And there was a period of time when the health struggles that I had done a raw vegan diet myself for a couple of months, but ultimately it was something that was very difficult for me to keep up with, because I wasn't at a point in my life where I wanted to even ask my family to do this with me. I didn't really know the health benefits. I didn't really know a lot of the things that I know now. And also it was very extreme at the time. It's not something that I recommend for anybody. I'm not a dietitian. I am not even an expert in plant-based diets. I can only tell you what has worked for me and what has worked for my family. And so at that period of time, it wasn't something that I could keep up with and myself. And ultimately I'd gone back to eating what is referred to as a SAD diet or standard American diet, really not ever paying attention to the things that I was putting in my body at all. And so I would have moments, I think, where I would be more aware, but for the most part, I wasn't paying that much attention. But there's something that happens, and maybe there's other moms that are listening or parents that are listening that can appreciate this. When something happens to one of your kids, that puts you in a whole other league, a whole other ball field than when something happens with you. You get in this mama bear mode of, okay, let's do this. How are we going to fix it? And we started off doing a whole food plant-based. So for anybody that's unfamiliar with that term, it is a diet that's whole foods, no animal products at all. So no milk, no cheese, no eggs, no meat, and then staying as close to whole foods as possible, meaning not processed or things in a box and fast food and all of those types of things. Really trying to limit things like sugars and oils and all of that, or I should say processed sugars. And so we had done that with her, and she was seeing amazing results. Literally within 4 months of starting her on this type of diet, her digestive issues were gone. And you have to understand that this was such a huge thing because she was on the verge of she was completely not well. This was a huge, when I say digestive issues, I know some of you are like, oh, she probably just had a little, something going on. It was a big deal. She was going to have surgery. She was going to have all these things happen. Within 4 months, she was fine. That is our experience. But on the road to get there, she was just little. She would sneak other foods because we all in the house weren't eating that particular way. And so as she started to get better, but also had been sneaking things and stuff as well, one day my husband literally sat down and was like, we're not doing this anymore. And we all became plant-based overnight. We had gotten rid of everything in the house. And you can actually, speaking of plant trainers and our guest today, you can actually see or listen to episode 221 of the Plant Trainers podcast when I told our story back in late 2017. So you can listen to more of the details about this there. But this whole journey for me has been so much more than a health journey, a diet journey, and a lifestyle journey. And there has been so many things that I've learned about myself, about us as a family, and also about relationships. Now, there are 3 specific things that my journey to a plant-based lifestyle has taught me about relationships. And the first thing is that sometimes you have to seek out the relationships that you desire. As we came into this world, I didn't know a lot of people that were plant-based at the time. I didn't have a lot of support. And when I would bring it up to, which is going to tie into to these other things that I learned. When I would bring it up, people wouldn't understand, and they would question me, and they would say, are you sure that's a good idea? People are well-meaning, I think, but a lot of times it was very discouraging. And so as I could have sat there and I could have said, this is so hard, nobody understands, but I learned that I had to seek out those relationships. I had to seek out other people that were plant-based. I had to seek out doctors that were like that, and friends and people who would understand, so that I had that camaraderie and those relationships of understanding people because they understood because they were in it themselves. The second thing I learned is that you sometimes have to understand who your audience is. And again, this ties into what I was saying on the first part. Just because you're in a relationship with someone doesn't mean that you have to share all the things. There are people, when you make choices in your life, whether it's just for yourself or your family, there are people that are not going to understand. And like I said, I think most people are well-meaning, but it can come off as very discouraging. It can come off like you don't have your own best interest or your family's best interest at heart. And also it teaches you about the different facets of relationships. Just because you're in a relationship with someone doesn't mean that you have to talk about certain things or that you have to relate on certain levels. And so if someone didn't understand what I was going through, they would be quick to put me down or make jokes or give me information that wasn't accurate at all. And so I had to learn very quickly, this is not the person in my life that I need to be talking about these things with. And again, going back to, learning to share with those people who are in your life that can understand those things, which brings me to my third biggest thing that I learned. And that's that one of the key ways to experiencing joy in life, and I talk about joy all the time on this show, on the videos I do on my personal Facebook page, on the Project Joy podcast, is to find the commonalities instead of the differences with people. We have an episode of the Breakthrough Show coming up in a few weeks that the person that's coming on to share a meal with me, we're going to be making a meal on the air. It does not follow a 100% whole food plant-based diet, but we were able to find we found that we agree on so many things, so many core principles, and we found a recipe that we agreed on, and that covers so many things that both she and I support and that we're about. And it's going to be an amazing episode, but what I really learned is that such a lesson for so many of us right now to find the commonalities instead of the differences. And that goes back to the number 2 point of understanding who your audience is. And I don't mean audience in a business way. I mean just who you're talking to in general. That find those things that you can talk about and focus on that instead of, well, they don't eat like me, so we can't hang out, and we don't agree about animal cruelty or all of these things, so we can't ever have a conversation. We can't be kind to each other. We can't ever, sit around the table and enjoy a piece of fruit together or a cup of coffee, And so I think that's such a huge thing right now for all of us that we can take to heart, that we can use, whether you're plant-based or not, to look at the relationships in our lives and find the commonalities instead of the differences, and we will experience more joy for sure. For sure. All right, guys, we're going to be back in just a minute with our special guest today, Adam Chaim. Stay tuned. Hey, Jessica Dugas here, creator, producer, and host of The Breakthrough Show. We have big goals here at the show in the desire to change the world one Breakthrough Show episode at a time. And honestly, we couldn't do it without you. We want to take this moment to give a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters for helping us to not only expand the show, but spread its message far and wide. If you're not a supporter yet, we would love to have you. You can choose any tier with tons of benefits at patreon.com/thebreakthroughshow. We can't wait to have you part of our Breakthrough Show family. And now back to the show. Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show, everyone. My special guest today may be familiar to some of you, but only through the stories of one of our other special friends of the show, Shoshana Chaim. He's the other half of the Plant Trainers podcast, founder of the Vegan Podcast Academy, a plant-based athlete and nutrition and fitness coach with over 20 years experience. Please welcome 2 times Ironman triathlete, Adam Chaim, to the show. Adam, thanks so much for being here. I feel like this has been a long time coming.
Thanks so much, Jess, for having me. I'm really excited to be on the Breakthrough Show with you. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, I'm excited. And like I said, we've heard from your wife before, who we love on this show, and everybody loves Shoshana. And so it's really cool to have you come on and get your perspective on a lot of things. And I think we've had a lot of really strong men on this season, which is really exciting. It's new for us here.
Cool. It's great that I can contribute. And I'm sure whatever you heard from Shoshana is not the truth, and I'll just clarify everything. No, it's all the truth. It's just her perspective on things, right, which makes total sense. So we'll hear some different sides, perhaps.
I love it. It'll be a new thing for us here. So I'm excited to jump in. Adam, I'd love for you to start off by sharing with us something that's bringing you joy in your life right now.
The joy comes to me every day when I see my kids and my wife, and just being able to still be here today to spend time with them and see their faces every day and hug them and touch them and just be so close to them and developing a constantly ever-growing closeness in a relationship with them. It brings me so much joy, happiness, and gratitude all at the same time. So that would be it for right now.
I love it. And you're used to sort of being in that space of joy, because on the Plant Trainers podcast, you all start off the show with a moment of gratitude. And I think gratitude brings us a lot of joy in our lives, right?
It does. And it also gives us perspective on what's going on in our lives at the time. And whether it's a very small moment of gratitude that you express or something on a bigger scale, like your relationship with your kids, it really brings you down to earth and gives you that connectivity to adding more joy into your life. So it's super important to develop that sense of gratitude on a regular basis.
Absolutely. I love it. So we're going to talk about lifestyle change today. And I would love to know, to start us out, if there was a time in your life when maybe you weren't as mindful of how you were living your life or your lifestyle.
Yeah, I totally grew up eating the standard American diet. As a little kid, I was very fortunate. I had all the great food that I wanted, but if you reflecting back on it, it was a lot of fast food. My parents had separated when I was 10 years old. So I was living with my mother and my brother, and we didn't have those family get together meals all the time. And it was quite often a fast food or pickup or delivery. And there were some healthy foods in the house, but I kind of grew up eating that way. And then as I became more interested in exercise and fitness, the food that I consumed changed a little bit, but it was guided by my household. And because I was not able to go out and do my own shopping at that age and bring it home myself, so I was eating what we had. And yeah, I would tell my mom, buy some lean turkey breasts or lean meats, because that was what I thought I needed to be consuming to be able to develop more muscle. And I was a hockey player. I played a whole variety of sports. So I was consuming a lot of food, just not the right ones, which I learned much later on after university and after going through this whole experience that I went through, to really shift my life into a completely different direction that I never would have expected.
Right.
Never.
Yeah, I think there was many of us that can relate to that way of life growing up. And I think there's a lot of times when I think back and how would things be if I had a different upbringing than I did? And I had to work on a lot internally to remind myself that my family did the best that they could do, that they only knew what they knew and did the best that they could with that. Is that something you've had to think about as well?
Oh, absolutely. And parenting is so challenging. It's the toughest job on the planet. I mean, you know that more than anyone, right? I mean, being able to supply your children with the best foods possible, the best life possible, is what parents are always after. So my mom wanted the best for us. My dad, when we saw him, we went out for meals, but it was always fast food-ish, and it wasn't the healthiest, but that's what we were accustomed to. And it became the norm. And I wouldn't have it any other way because of where I am today. And I don't blame or judge or any of that. It's been a learning experience over the years, understanding where I was to where I am now, and how I could help influence and implement everything I've learned for my own kids, and helping other parents implement it for theirs, because that's all we want, is the best for our kids. And so we need to transform our world into an environment that is going to allow that to happen.
I think as you were talking about, going into this, getting more into fitness and involving that in your lifestyle, but you were still eating like just a little different than what you had been used to. I think a lot about my grandfather's story, who, when he started having health issues, he started walking a lot more. He would walk several miles when he would get up earlier to walk several miles in the morning. He'd walk down by the beach and up by the golf course and back home. But really, I think it was very similar for him at the time, where he had just tweaked, like, it was kind of like making little changes, but not really pushing yourself out of his comfort zone, because at the time he didn't have a real kick in the rear end to say, okay, I've got to completely flip this. So tell us about when things really changed for you and what that looked like.
So things changed when I was about 15 and 16, because I started to get into working out. I was a teenager and that was the thing to do. And so the fast food stuff kind of like subsided a little bit. And I learned that I was supposed to be consuming a lot of protein. And that's where the lean meats came in, and the cans of tuna that I would eat right out of the can, and the beans. And so the way I was eating changed, but it was still not the healthiest way to be eating. I would still go to the mall, to the food court, and binge eat on those 99-cent burgers at the time, which don't exist these days. It's much more expensive.
Yeah.
They still have the burgers, but they're much more expensive.
Yeah.
So that wasn't very healthy long-term looking back. And when your listeners probably, or your viewers, or both, probably heard the story of what happened to me. But essentially when I was about 36, I was watching a game on TV, sitting on the couch. I had a pain running through my chest down the left side of my arm, which we know is a symptom of a heart attack. And to be the age of 36, no previous experience in that kind of health problem in my family, and being someone who at the time was a personal trainer, fitness instructor, phys ed teacher, teaching about nutrition to students in high schools, it didn't make any sense. Like, how could I be getting this kind of a reaction?
Well, I mean,
So
even
I went
when
to
you
the
were
hospital.
having that, even when you were having that, that pain going down, like, did anything think about in the moment, like, I've got to be just imagining this, like, because of where you were at?
Yeah, no, for sure I did. And so I let it, whatever. But then it was really feeling off. And I'm not the kind of person who rushes into going to see a doctor or going to the emergency room. That's not me. I don't take medication regularly. I never was a fan of that, even smaller growing up. But it was such a strange feel that I just had that intuition that something was wrong. And so I called Shush and I said, don't worry, I'm going to the hospital just to get this checked. I'm sure I'm fine, no big deal. And so I did. I went to the hospital. I had ultrasounds and testing done, and they sent me home. They said, nothing's wrong with you. You look fine. And I was like, but I have this pain, and it's weird, and it's not normal. And they sent me home. And so I didn't think anything of it. A few days later, it went away. I guess maybe I was working out too hard. I strained a muscle, had that reaction. But a couple of weeks later, I got that phone call from the doctor, who said to me that I needed to come in right away. We have a surgical oncologist set up for you to have surgery done to take out a tumor that we found in your kidney during that whole checkup. And like, I was in shock, right? Because that's not something you would ever imagine, or not something that I saw coming.
Right.
And so I didn't want to get that removed without knowing what was going on. So I went for a few other opinions, and two of them wanted to take out my kidney right away because they didn't know what the tumor was, and you could survive with one kidney, but I didn't feel good about that. So the third one told me he'll do a biopsy, and we did the biopsy, and it turned out that it was a benign tumor, which is great news. But at the same time, he told me that the type of tumor that it was, which is a hemangioblastoma, is highly related to a genetic disorder called VHL. And I didn't know what VHL was, and most people probably won't.
Yeah.
But what I did was I went home to my favorite friend, Google, and I looked it up and found out all kinds of things you probably don't want to know. And one of them that I was told was that most people that have VHL don't survive past the age of 40. And I'm 36, 37 years old, and Shush is pregnant with our second kid. And I'm like, how could I be around for 3 more years and then I'm gone and my family's going to grow up without me? And that I'm like, a vivid moment of me on my knees looking at my son Russ in the eyes, just tears coming down my face, thinking that I'm not going to be here to watch him grow up. It's just not like I'm getting emotional just thinking of it now. It just didn't sit right with me. And so I called a friend of mine who's a neurologist to kind of find out what this VHL was all about. And he told me the easiest way to figure it out is to go to an ophthalmologist, get a retinal exam done, because that's a great way to look into the body and see if there's tumors growing, because what VHL does is it deposits tumors along your central nervous system and then takes over your body. And so I went for the retinal exam, and the doctor told me that your eye doesn't show any signs of VHL, which is great news. And so I still had to do blood testing to make sure. But what she did see in that first retinal exam was that my arteries in my eyes were narrowing, and there was not good blood flow going through the middle of my eye, which are the beginning signs of heart disease.
Wow.
So once again,
it's one thing after another
shocked.
With you, Adam.
I know. I was shocked because, again, someone who's physically active all the time, I thought I was eating well. This shouldn't be happening to me. But unfortunately, like so many other people out there, we may look good on the outside, but we don't always see what's happening on the inside. And this was a major wake-up call for me, which led me into doing a ton of research to kind of figure out if I could get rid of this heart disease and make sure that I'm here for a long time with my family to watch them grow up. And so that's when I did the research and came across a plant-based lifestyle and eating whole foods and learning about the foods that would have a direct impact on my health in a positive way, not just eating for the satisfaction of eating. And so I watched some documentaries. I came across several books that were really influential. Reverse and Prevent Heart Disease by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn was a very big, impactful book. And then I came across Thrive Fitness and Thrive by Brendan Brazier, who's an Ironman triathlete who's been living a plant-based lifestyle forever and competed through a plant-based lifestyle. And I was like, wow, this is an athlete who's fueling himself on plants, but he's also talking about all the benefits that it has health-wise, environmentally, and for the animals. This is very interesting to me. And after watching Forks Over Knives, I was basically, well, I got to try this. Yeah. And overnight, I basically turned to Shush one night. I said, tomorrow I'm plant-based. I'm not eating any animal product. And she laughed at me. Yeah. And because I was a big meat eater, right? Yeah. I would have burgers and steaks, and that would be normal for me all the time. But overnight, I'm a man, like, that's what I do. I'm black and white. I made the switch, and I'd never looked back. And that was probably 9 years ago now that I started that, 8 or 9 years, almost 10. It's just around there. It's I'm 45 now, so it's not 9 years, 8 or 9 years. And so what I did was I made that dietary change in lifestyle. And then I decided to switch my fitness as well and stop playing late night hockey games because I was playing in a men's league. It was keeping me up really late. I wasn't getting good quality sleep. I was also getting up early. I decided to follow Brendan Brazier's fitness routine and get into triathlons. And so I started going to bed earlier at night, but still getting up early. So I was getting more sleep, but the quality ended up being better, which was really important. Right. And so I put all that together, the whole food, plant-based food and the fitness. And after a year, I went back to the retinal exam and got another one done. And this time my arteries were much wider, brighter red. The blood flow was much better. And the doctor asked me what medication I had been taking because the heart disease was gone. Yeah. And it's just incredible how powerful the food we consume can be. And I went back, I go every 3 months at that time for a tumor checkup. And there had been no change because I didn't take out the tumor. Right. I left it in, but there would be no change. It didn't grow, which was great. And after another 6 months of that, the doctor said to me, what medication did you take? Because your tumor's starting to get smaller. And that's not something we normally see. Right. And so after a couple of years, they said they didn't want to see me anymore because I seemed to be perfectly healthy and the tumor is non-issue. So it's been a ride. It's been amazing. And I'm super grateful for everything that I've been through because it's gotten me to where I am today to be able to help people try to avoid situations that I've been in by taking a look at their lifestyle and fitness and getting them to a healthy place and where they want to really be.
Mm. I love the story, and I've always loved hearing it from Shoshana's standpoint, because I'm a woman, she's a woman, and we're both moms, and to have that sort of scare where we're like, our rock, our partner, the person that we're in this life together with is facing this. It's been really cool to have that camaraderie with her in that way. But I loved hearing your perspective of everything as well. You and my husband have that part of the story in common, where it was an overnight, like, because if there was 8 days in a week, he would be grilling steak 8 days out of the week. And then because our daughter was sick, he sat down one day and said, "This is what we're doing." And I'm like, okay. I don't know. It was just that something just switched, and so you guys have that in common.
But what I'll say to that is that you said, okay. And Shush said, okay, I'll deal with it. I'll live with it. And then I'll come when I'm ready. And so there's two pieces there. One, we have partners that are very open and willing and supportive. And I can't tell you how lucky I am that I had Shush's support the whole way through this, because I would not have been able to do it without her. And I know because of this situation, she had some difficult times that we had to deal with. And I would not want to go through that again. It was a very tough time for her and for me, watching her go through it and being completely helpless. And the other thing is, a lot of people that go through situations like this, their partners are not on the same page.
Right.
They don't support, or you want to go plant-based, you want to eat that way, have fun, go for it. You're on your own. Our fridge is divided. Too bad. Yeah. Some families even separate because of it, which is crazy. And all we're doing is supporting each other and making ourselves live a healthier version of ourselves. And we're super lucky to have people like you and like Shush who are supporting us through the whole process, because it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's absolutely a patience thing, because when my brother passed away from cancer, that was when my eyes started to be open to a lot of these different things. And that was 10 years ago now. And I had gone raw vegan for a little while because I wasn't feeling good. And I thought, my brother that was 4 years younger than me, he just died. And it was a wake up call for me, but I wasn't putting it out there to my family at that time. I was just like, this is what I'm doing. You do you, and I'll do me, and we'll just do what we'll try to. And it was hard. It was hard for me to eat that way and see, the family still going on and, having their meat and eating it too, kind of thing. But, over time, I just was like, eventually they'll come to it in their own way. And I wish that it didn't happen in the way that it did with our daughter getting sick, but it was just how it happened. And sometimes we've had other guests on the show as well that have talked about this, where it takes that extreme to make us wake up and pay attention and realize that we've got to make changes. And I think that what I was going to ask you is, there's a lot of people who will listen to these stories that we tell about going plant-based or changing our lifestyle in whatever way, and they immediately go, I couldn't do that. I just and do you think that some of that is because, not just because of the way we're taught, but do you think that some of that is because they haven't had that life or death sort of moment?
Unfortunately, yes. And a lot of people are invincible in their minds, and things are not going to happen to them until it does. And so one of the things that we talk about all the time is helping people not wait until they have that tragic moment that happens to themselves or someone they love before they start to make changes. And we try to show them the changes they could make, so small changes that can make big differences over the long haul and lead you into a better direction than you're going right now. But the truth is, we can't change people. And until somebody really wants to make a change, it's not going to happen. So if it's going to take a tragedy or a tragic something very difficult for them to deal with, to force them in that direction, unfortunately, that's what it's going to take. And for the people that are open and willing and recognize what's going on in the world and how they could make an impact by just the food they put in or the food they choose, not only on themselves, but on everything and everyone around them, that's what makes the difference.
Right.
It's tough. It's very tough.
It is. And I think that what happens sometimes is we are, and why I think some people go through these big life altering things and don't change is because there's an overwhelm that's happens. They're overwhelmed with whatever they're being faced with, and they go, well, what's the point? Like I can't possibly, because if we think about that logically, right, it takes our bodies a long time to create this environment where we have disease or illness or something. And so we think, okay, well, if I start eating healthy today, what's it really going to matter? Because I'm already faced with this issue. What would you say to people like that who are in that midst of well, I could make a decision, but what's really the point?
Well, the point is your quality of life. If you think about my story directly, like if I would have thought that way, I wouldn't be here today, right? Most likely I would have been gone by the age of 40. I would not have been able to see my kids grow up, and look where I am now. You know, I'm in the best physical shape of my life. I feel the best I ever have. I'm able to watch my kids play. I'm able to play with them and be with them as a family. And so, yes, you can go down a negative spiral staircase if you want to, but what kind of way is that to live your life? Don't you want to live the best way possible, feel the best that you can, be with your family as long as possible, assuming you love your family?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a perspective game. Like the people that are going to have a negative perspective on things are going to bring negativity into their lives. If you want to bring positivity, and you got to have a positive outlook on everything and do whatever you can to put yourself in the best position possible to do all the amazing things you were born to do.
I love that. And I one of the things that I was concerned about when we were making our lifestyle change around here is that I wouldn't be able to enjoy the things that I've always enjoyed. And then we get into the, well, you only live once kind of thing. And what if I can't enjoy it? And that's a legitimate concern for people, especially when so many foods that we eat revolve around traditions, around family things that they do. And I've always been blown away, like, especially my daughter, she's taken such an interest in making new recipes with things that we used to enjoy. And I just didn't know the possibilities that were out there. Do you have any foods or things that you enjoy now that you never thought that you'd be able to continue enjoying?
I think it's interesting because especially these days, everything is available in its plant-based form. Like you can get all kinds of alternative meat products, and some of them are super similar to the actual animal product. Like you may not even realize the difference. I'm not saying that those foods are healthy and those foods are all the time foods, because they're not. But for a once in a while, like go that route. And I'm also not saying that everybody needs to do what I did.
Right.
Everybody's their own person. They're going to go through their own process, different speeds, different, like I'm okay. Somebody who doesn't want to give up cheese won't give up cheese until they're ready to, you know, someone who doesn't want to give up a certain type of meat won't until they're ready to. The more you do, the better off you'll be, but everybody's going to do it in their own time. I never really ate lentils as a kid. You know, I ate beans out of a can, but I never really thought about how I could eat all of those beans and lentils and legumes that I eat now. You know, there's so sweet potatoes are so amazing, and you put them with black beans and nutritional yeast, which I had never heard of before. You know, and and it's a power food, just those combinations. So you can keep it super simple, eat super well. The cost of the food does not have to be expensive, which is another thing that people get caught up and concerned about.
Right.
It's really super simple. And the combinations and flavors and tastes, and it's way more than I would have ever imagined or thought of before
Yeah.
doing any of this.
Yeah. Well, I'm so thankful that you've come on to share your perspective of your story today, and all of you. I hope you guys have been taking notes, because there's been lots of really good things that Adam shared with us today. So you're a two-time Ironman triathlete, right? What's next for you? Are you going to how are you going to top that?
So I'm not necessarily looking to top it. I mean, it's an achievement. It was amazing. I don't know if I'll do another one. I might. But when people ask me what I'm training for, I'm training for life. I'm training to be healthy long term and be around for my family as long as possible, and making an impact on whoever I come into contact any way that I can, and try to help them become the best versions of themselves. I dabble with different types of fitness all the time and try to see what interests me and what doesn't, and go from there. I still want to run. I still want to swim. I still want to do all these fun activities that I've learned to like over time. And for other people, that might not be exciting.
Yeah.
And for those people, you just got to find something that you enjoy doing, because that's what you'll end up sticking to longer term. So if there's a type of fitness, type of exercise that you enjoy doing, I would just encourage people to focus in on that and enjoy it, because that's what sustains the enjoyment.
Yeah. If someone's listening today, Adam, that really resonates with your story and your whole vibe and everything you have going on, how can you help them in their lives where they're at right now?
It all depends what they're looking for. If they're looking for nutrition, they're looking for fitness, just coaching online. We do a lot of that. And I'm happy to help whoever I can in any way possible. So they could reach out to me anytime, send me an email, info@planttrainers.com, or they could just check out our website and see what we offer at planttrainers.com. And of course, listen to our Plant Trainers podcast, which is available on all listening platforms. And we talk to so many awesome people. And I learn every time I listen to someone else speak on our show. So it's really cool.
That is my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing about doing a show and doing a podcast is just, I mean, it sounds like it's such a selfish thing to say, but I'm like, I take so much from this. You guys have no idea.
Yeah, well, we all do. And it's such an awesome educating experience, which is one of the reasons why I started doing it. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be able to share what I'm learning with other people, which is why the show goes out. And thankfully, it's reaching people and helping so many. And we're so grateful for that.
Yeah, I love it. Adam, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you guys can check out more about Adam Chaim, his wife, Shoshana Chaim, with the Plant Trainers podcast, and you can visit them at planttrainers.com, and be sure to check out their links in the show notes. And we'll be back in just a minute for more of The Breakthrough Show. Did you know that the Breakthrough Show Facebook page is home to more than just the Breakthrough Show? We've got monthly shows we like to call Breakthrough Extras, with more inspiring content to facilitate your next big breakthrough. Join Shiraz of Energetic Magic every fourth Monday of the month for Rewriting Reality. During this live show, you'll be able to call into the provided phone number, click the link to video chat, or use the comment section to review your beliefs, revise your stories, and rewrite your reality. You'll be able to watch him help you and others go to your core beliefs and destroy them just like magic. Find out more information at thebreakthroughshow.com, or tune in live this coming Monday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern at facebook.com/breakthrough show. And now, back to The Breakthrough Show. Welcome back to The Breakthrough Show. I just loved getting the opportunity to sit down today with Adam Chaim and have you hear his side of the story, and all of that after you've heard from his amazing wife, Shoshana, over the last couple of years and everything as well on The Breakthrough Show. I also hope that you were able to get some amazing tips and information from the beginning part of the show. If you're watching or listening live right now, be sure to go back and listen to the beginning of the show, because I've told our personal story so many times over the last 3 years, but I continue to unwrap the layers of the story. And this is something that everybody, I think, can do with their own stories. Unwrap the layers of the stories and see what else is there to learn besides the main message, because we have an opportunity to learn so much from the breakthroughs that we experience in our life. Huge thank you today to Adam Chaim for being our special guest. I want to give you a quick heads up for next week. On the show, we have an amazing entrepreneur from videosocials.net, Vikram Rajam, is going to be here. He is a fun guy from New York. You're going to love the conversation with him and some of the breakthroughs that he experienced in order to get to the place he is in his business today. Until next time, guys, please take a moment to rate, subscribe, comment, and share where available, and make today a great day for a breakthrough. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Breakthrough. Please visit our website at www.thebreakthroughshow.com. And be sure to join our After the Breakthrough community powered by Patreon. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place for another inspiring episode.